When it comes to infidelity, whether it's physical or even emotional, it's not only heartbreaking, but it's also important to understand that it is traumatizing. Infidelity is indeed a form of trauma. I say this all the time because it is. And why is that? Because it deeply impacts a person's emotional and psychological well being. It makes it difficult for a person to function on a daily basis. Your self esteem, as well as your self worth, is severely questioned and compromised. A roller coaster of emotional pain, such as anger, rage, confusion, shock, betrayal, sadness, shame, jealousy, to even feeling embarrassed. It can also manifest physically, leading to symptoms such as headaches and migraines, insomnia, appetite and weight change, to even fatigue. You have intrusive thoughts and flashbacks about the experience long after it's done. You have anxiety and worry, and even trust issues and fear of being hurt again, which ultimately becomes challenging to maintain future relationships. And according to statistics, roughly around 55% of those who divorce is due to infidelity. And for non-marital monogamous relationships, studies show that 30 to 40% of couples experience being cheated on. And so the question is, how does a person really recover from this? Is recovery possible? And does recovery seem achievable? And what steps can people take to heal and rebuild their lives? And so to help have this discussion around life after infidelity, I decided to bring someone who not only experienced infidelity herself, but she also recovered. And now she's helping other women do the same. And so my guest for today is no other than Briaina LaTrice. Okay. I met Brianna out here in these social media streets, y'all. We met at the podcast summit this year, and I ran into her, but I met her last year. Um, and she talks about life after infidelity. But let me just give you a little background about her. Brianna is a podcast host, she's an author, as well as a certified affair recovery coach. With a bachelor's degree in rehabilitation counseling and a minor in psychology, Brianna brings 15 years of corporate coaching experience to her work. With firsthand experience in navigating the devastating aftermath of infidelity, Brianna's journey has evolved into a profound mission to be a safe haven for other women to find healing, reclaim their power, and rebuild their lives after infidelity. As a TED speaker and author of Healing the Heart from Infidelity, she offers hope, empowerment through her workshops, retreats, as well as expert guidance. Brianna's personal commitment to recovery makes her a leading voice in helping other women overcome betrayal and find strength, confidence, courage, as well as happiness. And so, without further ado, Brianna, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it too. It's gonna be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. One of the things is that when I bring people on, I read about them, I research them, and I went back to your very first podcast and I heard your
Okay.
story.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
I was just like, wow. So I was taking notes because I really want to talk about this because so many people struggle with recovery from infidelity.
Yeah.
And your story, number one, it was heartbreaking, to be quite frank. It really
Mhm.
was, just to hear some of the things that you experienced. However, what I also love is the other side of you helping women. And so let's just go ahead and get into it. Let's kind of go back down memory lane a little bit because I want to paint this picture for people. How long were you married?
We were married for 7 years.
Wow. You were married
Yeah.
for 7 years. Mhm.
Mhm. So we dated for 6, and then I forced him to marry me. And then
Oh,
we were
so
married for 7. He never
oh,
wanted to
you
get married. So, like, that's a key indicator there. Like, never force a man to marry you. Like, just accept that, he's not ready for marriage, and if you are, then you just need to move on. So, yeah.
No, I understand. I get that. And so you all were married for 7 years. How long were you all together prior to being married?
6 years.
Okay. So you guys
Yeah.
were together a total of 13 years.
Mhm.
And one of the things that you said, because I really want to get into like the meat of this, because you mentioned in one of your videos that you found out about inappropriate behavior with women in year one of you all's marriage, or was it you all's relationship before you got married?
No, but the first time I found out was multiple women. So, like, I never really the first year, um, I just remember my mother-in-law saying something to me, and she was like, you know, whatever she said, "I worry about you being with my son." And I just remember, like, saying feeling a type of way because we're newlyweds and you should be really encouraging us, but that's her son, so she knows her son, obviously, right? And so at that point in time, I was in bliss, so I wasn't suspecting anything at all. But yeah, within that first year, she had sent me a text message out of the blue and was like, "Hey, I worry about you being with my son. Just know that whatever you do, find some peace in it and don't stay, too long, if you need to get out."
Mhm. Wow. And
Yeah.
so when we talk about inappropriate behavior, what was some of the things that you saw um that I would guess say maybe turned a blind eye to at that time?
Mhm. Yeah, so when I think about it now, like, us just never doing stuff together. Like, I think about, I had a whole husband, and it was crazy because when I first shared my story about being divorced, um, I had family members who messaged me and was like, "I never knew you were married." And that's
Mm.
crazy. Like, that's a problem that your own family don't know that you're married, you know? And so I would say that, like, never going to family events with me. Basically, everything that I was doing it alone, whether it was going to family functions or friends' parties and friends' wedding showers and things like that, always by myself, right? And then of course the classic, I have to work late, right? That's definitely a classic. Um, Always needing to do stuff with his friends and staying out till like 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. But it's because you're going to support your friends. Like, he always would say he has a friend who's a DJ. And so he wanted to go support his friend at the clubs, right? And so that's what he would say, but he stay out for 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. And even then, when he was out, turning his cell phone off, and I would turn a blind eye to that. And I would call, and if I did call, he would send me straight to voicemail and then immediately send me a text message. Um, and small things like I remember saying, "We're married. Why do you still have my maiden name in your cell phone? It should be Brianna, or Boo or Wifey or something." But he still had it under my maiden name, right? Um, Never ever. I tell people all the time, it's so funny. One time I went into the first of all, he would always lock the restroom behind him when he would go in the restroom. But like if he left the door unlocked and he would go in the shower, he would literally take his phone in the shower with him. Like in there in the water with him and everything. And so it was just small things like that, never wanting me to come to his job. So you have to look at how this person, if he's keeping you hidden, I think that that's an indicator, and then when they start to act very suspicious around their phone, if they don't wanna add you on social media platforms, like, first he lied and said he didn't have social media platforms. Well, then I found out that he had social media platforms, but then he didn't wanna add me as his friends on his social media platforms. So it's a lot of those different things that are indicators.
Wow. Did you ever question it?
At the beginning, no. At the beginning, no, because I always tell people I always thought my ex-husband hung the moon. And so I didn't even believe that he had the ability to be that type of person. Because and my mom and them will say it too, like, he didn't start out that way. Like, he was a very kind and compassionate and loving person. I remember, a couple of years back, I was going through and cleaning up my Facebook page and stuff, and I found a message, and at this time, we were still dating, but I found a message that I had sent to his brother, and I was just like, "Hey, if you see my boyfriend, your brother, would you let him know I'm trying to get to him? You know, I've been calling him." And I remember I thought back, and I remember as soon as I messaged his brother, my ex-husband immediately called me, right? But even then, I didn't even think about that type of stuff, and just to know, like, you could answer the phone for your brother because were probably around somebody else, but you couldn't answer for me because you were around somebody else. But even then, I remember sending those messages, not thinking nothing like, "Oh, he's just probably busy." I had 100% trust in him.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we didn't move in with each other until we got married. And so I think a lot of that you get to see a person's patterns, right? And everything that they do when you move in with them. So, like, what I discovered was he had been cheating on me way before we even got married. But it was easier for him to do it because we were in separate places. And he would always do his stuff at night because I'm not a night owl. He is. So it was easy for him to, entertain me until 10, because I'm normally in the bed by 11, and then go do his thing 11 until the wee hours.
Wow. Um, so let's kind of go when you first found out, like when you
Oh,
got the evidence where there was this level of, okay, I no longer see him in this rose-colored lens, like that awakening of now saying, okay, there's someone else. Take us through that day, because I heard it on the podcast because you talked about it. But
yeah.
let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I will say intuition is a beautiful thing, right? And we have to learn how to honor and listen to that intuition because there is some truth to it. So you hear me at first say, I had no concerns. Like, I trusted him 100%. So then you might say, okay, well, what happened then? Right. And so it was the behavioral changes of like, why are you so suspicious with your phone? Why do you hurry up and rush over and turn your phone down when I come over? Why, when I ask you, can I use your phone? Because my phone is, whatever, you won't let me use your phone, right? Are you'll like I remember one time asking him, can I see his tablet? He signed out of it and then handed it to me. Like, so when I started to see those things and you notice stuff, right? Like, you come up from behind them and then you see them hurry up and get off of Instagram. Like, I would see him staring or messaging people, and then when I would come up behind him because he didn't know I was coming, he would hurry up and rush off of their pictures or whatever. And so again, having social media pages and you not wanting me to be a part of them, right? So it's just a lot of that. And so that was what started this, okay, something is not right. Coming home at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. And actually there were a couple of times where he would text me and just be like, I'm not coming home tonight and I'm about to cut my phone off, so don't call me. And, because I was just this little desperate woman, I would do it. I would actually be like, okay, and wouldn't question it. And, so all of that was the buildup, but the day that I found out, or the first day that I found out, um, we were down to 1 car because his car was in the shop. So I had to pick him up from work. And, he was like, "Yeah, I need to go to Walmart." And I was like, "Hey, well, I'm cooking dinner, so, just drop me off at home and, you can go ahead and do your thing." And so he dropped me off, he came in, he changed out of his work clothes, and, he worked for a, cell at this time, he worked for a cell phone, place. So he had just gotten a new tablet, and, he left it on the table. And so, it's so funny, like, I remember I'm in the kitchen cooking dinner, and I'm just like, "Girl, I'm just staring this tablet down because 'cause I'm like, ooh, I need to get in this tablet," because 'cause I'm like, because I had been trying to get proof for, ooh, it was probably some years at this point and couldn't get nothing. And so I just remember looking at that tablet, then looking at my dinner, and then looking at the tablet, then looking at my dinner, like, "Okay, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?" So I went to the tablet, and see, I love my mother-in-law to this day. And I remember her telling me something years ago too. She was like, "Men are simple. What's the password for one thing is the password for everything." So I remembered in that moment what she said. And so I put in his debit card number in that tablet. Girl, I went to the kitchen and cut off the stove because I was like, "Oh, I know this finna get juicy." And
Mhm.
so, yeah, opened up the tablet, and to my surprise, I saw where he had just called his brother, but then I saw he called a female, and I'm like, "No, her." And so then I click on it, and then I see, like, the last message I see is "good night." And I'm like, "Hmm, why are you sending another woman a good night message?" And so I just start going through it. And so then at this point, I'm like, "Okay, I don't wanna be disturbed." So like I said, I cut off the stove and everything, put my shoes on, grabbed the tablet, left the house, and ran into the woods. And I know people are like, "Just didn't, double lock the door." And I'm like, at that point, I was so weak that even if he woulda banged on the door, I woulda opened it back up. I was like, I needed to be completely away from him where he had no way to reach me. Um, and I just need to be able to look at this stuff for myself. So as I'm in the woods, I'm looking through this tablet. And like I said, I had to make myself stop at Woman Thick because like I just remember calling one of my best friends and I was just frantic, like crying and I couldn't get my words out. She was like, "Brianna, where are you? What's going on? Like what?" And I just remember telling her, "I gotta call you back. I gotta call you back." And that was really the discovery of the first time, and the first time was 6 women.
6 different women.
6 different women. I actually ended up
Wow.
calling 2 of them, and
Yeah.
the crazy thing is, the one chick who did answer, she was like, "Oh, no, we were just, we're just cool, we're just friends, I never messed with him like that, blah, blah, blah." But how ironically that as soon as I got off the phone with you, then my ex-husband started blowing my phone up, and then
Right,
hit
so
that.
she was most likely still entertaining him, and she called
Mhm.
him.
And she probably called him and went off on him, because why now are you calling, like, literally when I wouldn't answer, he would hang up and call back, hang up and call back, hang up and call back. And so, she already knew. Yeah. And my thing was with her, why lie? Because I didn't come at her in any type of way. I just was like, "Hey, I'm his wife. I don't know if you noticed, but he is married." And, you coulda just at that point been like, "Hey, I'm so sorry, I didn't know that." But she was trying to play it dumb, like, "Oh, no, we never did nothing like that." And then come to find out as I did further investigation, girl, like going down, how like now we just go down this rabbit hole of
Rabbit
everything.
hole.
He
Mhm.
would he would be in her house all the time, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. So it's like, you don't have to lie because 'cause we're in an era of technology where you're going to get found out. So just tell the truth
So let me ask you this, because I know you said you stopped at woman number 6
for the first time.
for the first time. It was now I wanna kinda add to this just a little bit because when I was listening to your podcast, you also mentioned that you went to the gym and he had a girlfriend that he was involved with for 2 years, and she approached you.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So
so was this after you
uh
found out about the 6 women? Okay.
so she was the very last one. So what happened is this happened, my first discovery happened in 2015. So for the next 5 years, every 6 months, I would find out about another woman.
That was
Like,
his cycle.
yeah, that was his cycle. So honestly, his cycle was 3 months. He would do very good for 3 months, and then 3 months would be where he would flip back up. But then, about that 3rd cycle, so that 6th month is when I would, be like, "Okay, here we go again. So let me see what's going on again." And, yeah, I would find out about another woman. And mind you, the first time that I found out, my friend, she called me back because I called her and told her what was going on. And she called me back and she was like, "Hey, my husband said to come over here." because he said he's not worried about, your husband. He's worried about you and what you would do to him if you stayed there, because he was like, how women scorned are. So she was like, he wants you to come over here now. So I actually went to their house and stayed with them for 2 days. And then I came back, and now at this point, he's got his guards down because I hadn't talked to him in 2 days. So when I get home, he's at work. And so something that he never does, he left his, laptop open. So now I go into his laptop. Now this is 2 days later. I find 4 3 to 4 different women added to the 6 I had just found out about 2 days ago. So every 6 months, like clockwork, yes, I will find out about another woman. And then the last one was in 28. So it was 2018 really was when she approached me at the gym. And I, was able to set him up. And then that's when I went through my divorce, like finally went through my divorce. And I always say to women, legally going through a divorce and physically divorcing someone is 2 different things. So
Oh,
when you hear in
100%.
my story where I say 2018, his girlfriend of 2 years approached me at the gym, and then my divorce was finalized shortly after that. But then you hear me say I stayed with him through 2020 was because physically I hadn't left him, because I was still hoping that a piece of him would change and want to be better for me. And even then, he was still doing the same cycles. And so in 2020 was when I walked away for good.
Wow. So every 3 months, there was a different woman. Every 6 months, I'm sorry.
Every 6 months. And, I don't even know if it was different women or he just added more women to his roster, because his girlfriend of 2 years, when she approached me at the gym, she told me that she caught him with another woman.
Wow.
And so, you just so I don't know. For me, it was another woman added to the bunch that I would find out about. But I don't know, maybe it was just different women that he had in a heavy rotation, but I would just find out about each one differently. But yeah, even she, as the side chick, found out about the other side chick, because another crazy thing is I was so weak that he
Yeah.
had convinced me that we could stay married but live in separate places. So when people wonder, well, how did he do all of this? Because I had agreed to us staying married but living in separate places, because he had convinced me that this would be healthier for our marriage.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know where he lived. So he moved and he knew where I lived, but I didn't know where he lived for a while. And the only way I found out where he lived was because one day we were going out. And you know how, like, subconsciously when you driving home, so subconsciously he went to his place, and he was like, and he cussed when he realized it. And I remember I put it, because he was living in an apartment, and I logged that. And the way that I found out his apartment, which is funny, because see, you gotta understand, women, we know how to do stuff. The way I found out his apartment number was, girl, I logged into his work account and looked at his insurance card. And that's the only way
Wow.
I knew where he lived.
And so, I mean, that's a lot to digest in that situation. Um, he had a cheating cycle of every 6 months. He had a total of, what, 8 women that you know of. Did you keep trying to find out, was there more women, or did you just get to a point where you just stopped counting?
Yeah, I just stopped counting. Like, even with the chick who approached me at the gym, I was at a point at that time where I didn't go looking. And actually, it was beautiful how that happened, was because the night before, he and I had gotten into a really bad argument. Um, because this was one time, and I share this story because I want women to know there's no shame in your experience, right?
Yeah.
And I love that everything that I've went through, all of the women that I am coaching now, most of it, for the most part, is nothing new, because I got dogged. And so, the in 2018, he didn't sign his lease to his apartment. So he asked, could he stay with me until his next apartment was ready? And I was like, okay, cool. Cause at this point we were still married. And so I was like, okay, cool. And so he's staying with me. Mind you, he's not paying no bills, but you're my husband and you're living in this house with me. And now I'm also buying you groceries again and cooking dinner for you again in my house. You're not paying no bills. So finally I said, so this particular night we were having a discussion and turned into an argument. And I was just telling him, look, because I was under the impression that he was just gonna stay for like 2 to 3 weeks till, he got the keys to his apartment. Well, it turned into like 3 months. And 3 months of you living with me and not paying no bills, like we can't do that. And so I was telling him, I need you to, put in your half or whatever if you're going to continue to stay here longer than, if you don't plan on finding an apartment, this is what I expect from you. And so he got upset. And I remember praying to God because a week prior to that, I had met with two of my friends separately. And I had told them both, I said, I feel so guilty when I pray because I want to divorce my husband. And I know, what the church says about divorce. I said, so there's been a time where when I go down to pray, I wasn't even opening my mouth. And one of my friends said, well, Bree, at the end of the day, God knows your heart. So just ask God to guide and direct you. And so after we had that argument, finally was able to pray. And I said, God, send me a sign and show me that it's okay for me to leave this marriage. And that
Yep.
next day, that heifer approached me at the gym. Because people are always like, she's disrespectful. The other woman doesn't have a right to approach it, to approach the wife and blah, 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 blah. But like I always tell people, I prayed for this and God gave it to me because that's
Yeah.
what had me go. Because I had filed for my divorce months ago, but this happened. So I filed for my divorce in February of 2018. This chick approached me in November of 2018, and my divorce was finalized by the end of November of 2018. So be careful what you pray for, because God gonna give you your
Right.
answer. But like I've been through a lot of trauma in that marriage, and I want to encourage women that like you don't have to be embarrassed with whatever you feel like is crazy for you. It's not, and you can get through it.
Yeah. And I know that, you asked him, "Why can't you stop?"
Yeah,
And
I
what was
asked
his response?
his response when I asked him, "Why can't you stop cheating on me?" And he said, "I can't stop cold turkey."
Yeah. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because I know someone's listening and they may have experienced, infidelity in their marriage or their non-marital relationship, and they're questioning what's wrong with me. They're questioning, why am I not enough? And I think when he said that and he made that, statement, I think it's important for people to understand that another person's actions a lot of the time is not necessarily about you. It's more about them
Mhm.
and themselves. And so when he said he couldn't quit cold turkey, was that your what were you done at that moment, or have you got to a point where you were ready to, or you weren't ready to really, I would say, accept what he was saying?
There's this fine line between hope and insanity,
Mm.
and I was bordering it because when he told me that, I remember thinking, "But he's going to stop." He said he can't stop cold turkey, but he's going to stop. So
Right.
what I took from that was, okay, he's working on it, right? And that was because I was teetering that line of hope and insanity and hoping, right? Or even hope and desperation,
Yeah.
hoping, desperately that this man is going to, if I just continue to love him harder, like if he tells me this and I stay, oh my gosh, he's gonna see me in a different light. And of course he's gonna stop with all these women because I stayed when he told me that he couldn't stop cold turkey and I loved him through it. And it don't work like that. It does not work like that. I wish it did, but it does not work like that.
Yeah. And so divorce finalized in 2018, you stayed to 2020. That's
Mhm.
when COVID hit, and COVID can really I think there was a part of COVID that brought an awakening to a lot of people because
Mhm.
you were forced to
Yep.
be in the same house every day. You couldn't escape, right? There was no
Mhm.
escape, okay?
Mhm.
When was enough for you? Like, what did it for you to say, I'm I gotta go. Like, I can't I have nothing else." No, yeah, because I would love to know. After 5 years, we talking about every 6 months. We're
Mhm.
talking about a woman that approached you and said, "I'm his girlfriend," and then he had another woman. It's there's a lot there.
Yeah.
Mhm. What gave you what made you say, "I'm done," in 2020?
Yeah. So 2018, when I found out when the chick approached me, that night when he came home, because again, he was staying with me at this point in time, so he wasn't even on the lease. Um, so I kicked him out. So November 2018, he was not in my apartment. So I say that to say come 2020, we weren't living together. And so it was still but so it gave me because now I'm confined in this house by myself, right? Outside of when he did come over or when we would meet up, go to parks and stuff like that. But for the most part, I was confined in this house to myself. And like you said, it forces you.
Yeah.
But really what happened was the world shut down and, I had been wanting to get locks for a while, actually. And so when the world opened back up, I had made this appointment with a loctician, and, I went to the appointment, and I told her, I said, "Hey, my hair is balding in the middle," and, I said, "So we probably wanna get that looked at before I get my locks and add that extra stress on there." And she was like, "Oh, yeah, for sure. I don't wanna lock your hair up and your hair is balding in the middle." So she was like, I have a trichologist that I can refer you to. And so I was like, okay. And, a trichologist is basically a natural dermatologist, someone who holistically does hair. And
Mhm.
so I made my appointment with this lady and she tells me, she's like, okay, I'm going to put your body on this scanner and it is going to tell me everything that I need to know about you. She was like, from the rooter to the tutor, it's going to tell me, everything about your body. And it's going to tell me why your hair is falling out. It's COVID. So it just makes sense that it's stress, right? And I'm a stress ball. Like, so I already knew she was going to tell me stress, but I was like, okay, cool. Let's just go through it. And the scanner scanned for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then, it went off, and I could see this screen, and she just started cussing, she's a black lady, and she was just cussing, and I'm nervous because I'm looking at this computer screen, and the silhouette of the body has red circles all over it. So I'm like, "Oh my gosh, is she about to tell me that I have a terminal illness and I don't have much longer to live?" Like, I am legit concerned at this point because she's cussing and hysterical. And so she finally sits down because at this point in time, she was up. So she finally sits down and then she folds her arms and she just stares at me for, what feels like 5 minutes, but it was probably just a few seconds. And then she said, "So tell me, what's wrong with your broken heart?" And I remember looking at her very confused because I'm thinking, like, okay, wow, this is the first woman who has ever seen me. And, then I started crying, and then I stopped. I was making myself stop, and she was like, "No, that's your problem. You need to let that out. You've been holding this in for too long." And so, basically what she told me, she said, "Your scan shows that you are completely healthy." She was like, "The only thing that's causing your hair to fall out is that you have a severely broken heart." And, she was like, "So you have a choice. You can stay with this man who is killing you slowly, or you can," and she was like, "And that's going to be hard to stay with him." She said, "Or you can do another hard and leave him so that you can continue to live and be a daughter to your mother, be a godmother to your godchildren, a cousin to your cousins, and she just went down this list of how much life I have to give instead of giving it all to this man who's taken everything from me. And she was like, "So the choice is yours." And that was on a Wednesday. Um, my ex-husband's grandmother had just passed away, so I went to the funeral on that Friday, and I remember, like, just hugging him a lot longer than I would normally hug him because I knew that I wasn't gonna see him again, and so I hugged him just a little bit longer, just a little bit tighter, and he was like, "Well, are you coming to the family house with me?" And I was like, "No." And that was the day that I left, and, I've been happier ever since.
And so you haven't talked to him since then?
Um, so there were still points, like, where he would show up to my
Yeah,
house, like, cops were called, there were,
because
domestic.
he couldn't handle that
'Cause he
no.
couldn't Yeah, he couldn't handle me moving, so now that I have moved, and now that he
Mm,
doesn't know where I have moved, that's been 4 years now, so I
yeah,
don't there's no communication, but when I left him that day, I made up in my mind that I wasn't going to engage in any dialogue with him, because you know how men will do, especially manipulative men, where they'll do things to reel you back in, right? He knew that I wanted kids. And so I remember his last text message before I had blocked him. He sent me a text message out of the blue in the middle of the night and was like, "I never said I didn't want any kids, blah, blah, blah." And I don't even know what the rest of the message said because I didn't even read the rest of the message. I said, "Nope, this is a bait text." And I know what he's
mhm,
trying. So I
yeah,
deleted it and I immediately blocked his number. And so we have to be careful about that when we're in emotionally abusive relationships,
yeah.
knowing when people are trying to bait us back in because they'll typically take the things that they know that we have always had a desire for to try to reel us back in.
Before we continue, I have just one important question to ask. And that question is, are you ready to start releasing the story of your divorce or even your breakup so that you can live a life by design rather than by default? And why do I ask this question? Because what I've seen in my experience over and over again is that many dissolve, but few detach, meaning that they may no longer be in the relationship anymore physically. However, they may still be attached to the story mentally and emotionally. And guess what happens? You bring that attached hurt with you only to disrupt as well as distract you from thriving in your next chapter. And let me tell you something. We're already in the second half of 2024, and you don't have time to remain in a previous chapter of your life that was only designated for a season. Now, if this is you, then here's what I propose, okay? I propose that you join me for my 7-day Beyond the Breakup workshop that starts August the 19th through August the 25th, where you will be working alongside with me for 7 days. And I will be giving you my strategic blueprint on what you must do to turn the page of this chapter so that you can start a new story and thrive after your divorce or breakup. And here's the thing, the workshop is free. And this is actually going to be my last and final time that I'm hosting this workshop for 2024. So if you know that this is your time, head over to tanyacarter.com/beyond the breakup to sign up and register. Okay. That's tanyacarter.com/beyond the breakup. And I will put the link down in the show notes. No, that's good. That's good. Wow. That's a lot,
Mhm.
just in a span of 5 years, right? And here we are
Yeah.
4 years later, and now you're helping women do the same. So when
Yeah.
let's talk about after the exiting process, because I think that's very important, right?
Yes.
One of the things the trichologist told you was how was your heart? Like who hurt you? Like that heart work that I think doesn't get a lot of talk as it
Exactly.
should.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about that process as well, like that moving on and healing process. What was it like for you in regards to navigating that life after part? Because, I think sometimes this healing process looks like it's just so beautiful, man. That thing I'm talking about, honey, that anger, that rage. Did you ever felt like you wanted to seek revenge? Like, was there a point where you wanted a level of revenge? Just curious.
You know what? Honestly, no. Mm-mm. And it's crazy because you would think that I should have, but I
Mhm.
did. I did. I think, um, I was so broken,
Yeah.
I didn't even have the time to focus on him.
Mhm.
Like, by the time I actually left him and started to do the work for real, I only had enough energy for me
Yeah.
because I was that broken, I was that hurt. I didn't even have the time to wish ill on him. And and even now, um, I don't wish ill on him because now I understand that it wasn't me. It's his own personal issues. And so now there's this empathy of like, ooh, I pray that you have sought the help that you need because what you are doing to me was something that you were running from and something
Yeah.
that's hurting you. And so I pray that you go and get the help that you need.
Yeah. Did you go to therapy?
Yeah, so my trichologist ended up being you can call her whatever you wanna call her, a life coach, a spiritual
Yeah.
advisor. She's also a Reiki master. So, I actually started doing, like, real work with her. We would do Reiki sessions almost monthly or biweekly, and then we would do coaching sessions, and, it's interesting because our first session her first question to me was, "When you look at yourself in the mirror, what is it that you see?" And again, I am this, vibrant Leo type energy person, you know what I'm saying? So I do a
Yeah.
great job of concealing just exactly how I'm feeling. And so I was trying to downplay it with her, and I was like, "Well, people say blah, 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 blah." And she was like, "Mm-mm, no. When you look in the mirror, what do you say?" And I was like, "Well, people say blah, blah, blah." And she was like, "Brianna," and at this point, she's like, "I'm not playing with you. What is it that you see in yourself?"
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there and I was like, "Do I answer this question honestly or do I end this session?" Because it pissed me off, like, you know, and I was like, "Okay, cool." She already said that if Imma work with her, like, we finna do this work. And
Yeah.
so I told her, I was like, "I hate myself." And girl, I've never cried that much. Like, I could hold the tears in the palm of my hands. Like, I have never cried that much. And in that first session, it was discovered that honestly, this had nothing to do with my ex-husband. The insecurities that I had, the rejection that I had, the anger that I had, the shame that I had, the self-hatred that I had, it had nothing to do with my ex-husband. That was the first time at what, 30, 31, 32 years old, I had acknowledged that I had daddy issues.
Mhm.
And that's where we started because what was discovered was my dad left me at a young age. So I don't I have no relation I had no relationship with my dad, but come to find out my issue was rejection. And so with this husband, I thought that if I could do everything because I didn't want this to be another man that I love who walked out on me, right?
So
And
there
so
was
I realized
abandonment
that abandoned me
abandonment
for
as well. Right.
abandoned, so
Yeah.
those were my core wounds were abandonment and rejection, and so
Mhm.
understanding that this had nothing to do with my marriage, this had everything to do from my childhood that was connected to the man that I loved the most, which was my father, which oddly enough, I have a podcast episode called "I Married My Father," and it's
Mhm.
because once I left my husband for good, I think about 6 or 7 months after that, I met my dad for the very first time, and my dad is the spitting image of my ex-husband, from his appearance
Really?
from his appearance to how he treats his wife and everything, and
And
it's
then that's
crazy.
interesting because he wasn't, like,
In my
physically
life. He
around.
wasn't in my
Yeah.
life. He was not in like,
Yeah.
I think the last time I saw my dad was maybe 5 years old, and here I am. I can't remember if I was 31 or 32. And I'm looking at my dad in the face, and I'm like, "I married my husband." And so
Yeah.
there's always this where I like to share with women too. daddy issues can look several different ways, right? It
Mhm.
doesn't always come up as, you know your dad or you don't know your dad, and it shows up as you being promiscuous and sleeping with multiple men and all that stuff. Because I was a virgin. My ex-husband now was the only person that I'd ever been with intimately. I saved myself for marriage. I went to college. I graduated on time in 4 years, had a job before I walked across the stage. I did all of these things, was a good child growing up. So, you can have daddy issues with your father in the home or with your father not in the home, and you can be successful or you can be promiscuous. Those issues are going to show up any type of way.
So glad you said that because it's
Mhm,
very accurate.
mhm.
Um, and I think people have to sometimes we say, well, having a two-parent home, I'm not saying that that doesn't have a benefit, but
Yeah.
depending on what a person experienced in that home,
Mhm.
they can still come out with some form of, wounds and things of that nature. And so realizing that this man meeting your father, oh my God, what was that like for you?
Ooh, again, I've had life happen to me. So actually how I met him was, mind you, he had stood me up twice. And so this time that I'm meeting him, he wasn't supposed to be there. Um, his wife now, they were still dating at the time or engaged. She had reached out to me because the second time that he stood me up, I remember telling her, "Hey, I'm done with him." And I was like, I don't, I'm okay. Like I'm stepping away from having a relationship with him, because he doesn't get to continue to treat me like that even in my adult age, right? And so, she was like, "Well, I still want to have a relationship with you, and I want you to meet your sister, so can we meet up?" And so I remember saying, "Yeah, we can meet up." And so my brother, because mind you, I also have a brother, and I found my brother through my father. So, now I have a relationship with my brother now, and crazy about that, we were in the same town, grew up, he went to the same school, high school with me for a little bit, didn't even know it. And my brother calls me and he's like, "Hey, have you talked to our dad?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Oh, well, he's gonna be there at the meetup with you and, you know, when you go meet your sister and, his girlfriend." And I was like, "I wasn't aware of this." And so now I'm pissed, right? Because I'm like, "No." So at this point, I'm having a breakdown. I call my life coach and she was like, your problem is you want everything to happen the way that you want it to happen." She was like, "You wanna meet your daddy, you finna get the opportunity to meet him, so what's the problem?" She was like, "You like to control stuff." So we talked through some things and, how to kinda work through that, and I went to the meeting, and again, now this is the, uh, 3rd time is when we meet up because he had already, stood me up twice. So now I'm numb again, right? Because like I told you, I stayed with my husband so long, I was numb by the time I left. So now I'm
Yeah.
numb because the first time I was gonna meet my daddy girl, I had all these questions about, "Why didn't you come looking for me? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you blah, blah, blah?" This time, I literally looked at him well, first I addressed her and I said, "You shoulda let me know that you were bringing my father along." And I said, "Moving forward, if you wanna continue to have a relationship with me, I need you to be open and honest in all things. I value communication." And she was like, "You know what? I apologize, and I respect that." And then I looked at my dad, and now this before even the water came, like, I was like, "We finna get down to business, like, we not finna do no hee hee, ha ha, sugarcoat, like, I'm finna let y'all know." And I told my dad, I said, "I've been through a lot in life right now." And I said, "And it's taken me a lot to get to this point." And I said, "I don't have the capacity for another man to play tennis with my heart, just ping pong my heart back and forth, back and forth." I said, "So if you want to be in my life, here's what's expected." And I gave him my expectations. I said, "And if you don't feel that you can adhere to those expectations, that's fine." I said, "We can have a meal today. We can hug it out and then you can go on and you don't have any responsibilities to me." I said, "But just know that if you're saying that you want to be in my life, this is what I expect from you." And then, he was trying to explain. I was like, I'm not open for that. I just want you to know where I stand, and this is how we can move forward. And, it's a beautiful thing. And even that, like you said, with healing, there is still a process of like ebbs and flows and, working through it. But I am grateful that God has allowed me to have these hard situations just because it's really making me the coach that I am for the women that I get to help.
No, that's good. So when you talked to your father, when you saw your father, when you was like, "Wow, I married my father,"
Mhm.
um, did that also mean he did infidelity back in his day as well?
Still doing it.
Mm,
Yeah, that's why I was like,
and
even how he
so
treats his wife now. Yeah,
you want
because
me to
my
keep
mom
that
left
on
him,
you
but
want me to
he
keep
was
this on
free.
on my podcast, what you just said? I can always edit everything, so
Oh, no, no, she knows.
I mean
Look, she called us telling
okay.
us she knows. We
Wow.
know because she
Um,
has called us telling us.
and this goes to show that covenants are real beyond just
Mhm,
marriage, right? We're talking about family lines here. You understand? And
mhm.
so I'm sure that there's some things if he went down his
Yeah.
own path, he may find a trace of that as well. So let
Mhm.
me ask you a question because it's something you said that I really kind of want to touch on. And you said, I realized that this wasn't about my ex. I realized that this was about me.
Mhm.
And the reason why that gave me a aha moment because that's something that I talk about all the time. That's
Yeah.
something that my clients say, "Your program is nothing about divorce. It's all about me." And I want to talk about that because even in the hurt and the betrayal, even in the
Mhm.
trauma that you didn't deserve,
Mhm.
there was still a level of accountability that you had to take.
Yeah.
And the power in that is amazing because sometimes we may not see that there's a lack of ownership that we still have to allow ourselves to take because in that ownership lies your power. In that
Mhm.
ownership gives you your courage, your confidence, your
Yeah.
ability to be bold and courageous. And I want to talk about that because when your life coach said, "What do you see?"
Mhm.
and you broke down, I want to talk about what were some of the things that you had to see in yourself.
Ooh,
You
what did
understand
I
what I'm saying? Because because when you go through something like infidelity, I mean, let's be real. You could talk about this story and people can still say, "Poor Brianna,"
Mhm.
or we could still make you feel like you were the victim, and I'm not saying you weren't. I'm just
Mhm.
indicating that you could ride that for life and
Yeah.
nobody would you understand what I'm saying? And so but to say, "No, I had to look at myself, I had to check out my wounds." What were some things that you had to see in order to get to having empathy for him? In order to be able to meet your own birth father? In order for you to say, "Now I'm helping other women overcome this." It had to be some things that Brianna had to see in herself that you needed to take ownership for to embrace this next season of your life because it can break you. Let's be
Mhm.
real,
Mhm. Mhm.
but you didn't.
No. Um, ooh, that's a good question. Like, what were those things that I had to see in myself? So, one of the things that, like, I did a TEDx talk over imposter syndrome, and one of the lines that I said was, "Why can't I see the things in me that other people see?"
Mm,
And it's like, "Why can't I see all this greatness that other people see? All of this." Like, when somebody see you and they're like, "Girl, you got a bright future ahead of
mhm.
you," and, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, you're such a great speaker," or, "You're such a great this," and, "You're great this," and that's the thing, like, I have always heard how great I am, but I've never believed it, and it was like, why can't I believe what everybody else sees? And it's like, what is it about me? And so I really had to just come to acceptance. I think that I had lived my life in a facade and masking everything behind happiness, masking all of my hurt behind joy. masking all of my embarrassment behind joking, right? Because, one of the things I was, people never notice about me and they don't believe it, but I was voted class clown of my high school class of 500 people. Like I was a fool, but it was like, get to the joke before they joke on me, right? Before
Yeah.
they touch on my things that I'm insecure about. Everything that I had created and cultivated for myself, from being a jokester, from being a loving person, from being a compassionate person, from being a giving person, all of that was to conceal everything that I wanted, but never felt like I had received for myself. So, what that looked like was accepting accepting that, you know what, I am insecure about these things. I am insecure about certain things in my appearances. I am insecure and embarrassed about staying with this man that I knew was cheating on me for 5 whole years. I am hurt that my daddy left me and
Yeah.
didn't even try to find me for 25 plus years. I
Yeah.
am bothered that I thought I was going to go down a different path than my mother did because my mother married a man who cheated on her. And I said I would never do that, never have a marriage like that. I am angry. I am embarrassed that I said I didn't want to be like every other woman in my family whose marriage ended because of infidelity. Like, I'm mad at myself. I'm mad that I'm 33 and I'm single, living in a one-bedroom apartment while all of my friends around me are buying homes and having baby showers and having kids. Like, I'm hurt. I'm hurt because everybody else has everything else that I desire and that I know I deserve because, God, I lived a life that you said, save yourself for marriage. I did that, right? Go to church, pray every day, pray over your husband, like, so all of this stuff is just going through my mind to where, I'm hating myself because I thought I did everything that you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
But I had to learn how to, one of the things that my life coach had me to realize is like, there's no shame in that. There's no
Yeah.
embarrassment in the good and the bad. So that's why I love the work that I do with Life After Infidelity, because it's not me always reminiscing on what happened. It's showing that, hey, yeah, these bad things happened to me at one point in my life, and it's okay. I'm not ashamed of them. Like, I'll share my story because now I don't live behind a mask of, you know what I'm saying, what I put out. Now when you see me, I'm authentic because I have been able to go back and accept and embrace all of that. And, after I accepted that, it was just giving myself compassion because, a lot of times with when we're ashamed comes regret. So then we start to regret, "Dang, why did I stay that long in that relationship and that man didn't love me? Dang, well, why didn't I try to look for my daddy?" And you ask yourself all of these questions, but it's let go of the regret. It is what it is. How are you
Yeah.
going to learn from this and become a better person? Because this is your story and your story is absolutely beautiful. And once you learn and acknowledge that everything bad that happened to you was for you so that it can help you get to the other side of something great, I think it makes you look at the struggle like it's still hard, but it makes you look at it a little bit differently because you also understand too, everything that I was saying, I was measuring my life against everybody else, not realizing that everybody else got their own stuff they dealing with. And
Yeah.
so I had to really that's why I love COVID so much too, because it allowed me to separate myself from everybody else and just look at Brianna and not compare Brianna to anybody else, but just do the work for Brianna for Brianna.
No, I love that. That's good. I know you said that you had empathy for him and understanding for him, but you also but in everything you just said, you had to give yourself that
Yep.
same empathy, same understanding, the
Mhm.
same level of forgiveness.
Mhm.
Is that
Mhm.
accurate?
Yeah, because, in one of my, Reiki sessions, it was like a while after we had been doing the work on myself and I had started to improve, and that was actually one of the things that we did is that, because I don't have any contact with my ex-husband now, but I released him. and I said, "I forgive you," because you were fighting your own wound. I forgive you, you don't have to worry about trying to apologize to me. And so that's what that looked like too. But I wasn't able to fully give him that until I gave that to myself. And that's one of the
Mhm.
things that I always tell women is like, forgiveness of your partner who has done you wrong is the last thing on my list when working with you, because we first have to learn how to forgive ourselves. Because
Absolutely.
we beat our like everything that I just told you I was doing, I hadn't forgiven myself because
Yeah.
I was constantly running all of these things through my mind and pounding myself for them because I hadn't forgiven myself. I was still holding myself hostage to the things that I had let happen to me in the past. And so I always tell women like the first step, after acknowledgement and acceptance is forgiveness of yourself, because you can't give anything to anybody else that you haven't given to yourself. You can't give compassion, you can't give grace, you can't give love, you can't give understanding, right? You can't give any of it to anybody else until you give it to yourself. And so that's what I had to do, and that's the work that I have the women do as well.
Oh, I love that. Gotta ask this question here. Redefining your relationship with men, right?
Mhm.
Because, healing it's a journey. Okay.
Mhm.
Like it's not like you just wake up and all is well, right? It would be
Right.
nice, but I
Mhm.
mean, did infidelity alter that for you in regards like how do you see your relationship with men? Because now that I mean, from what you experienced with not only your ex-husband, but also your father,
Mhm.
how do you view men? What is your when I say relationship, I'm not saying whether or not if you're in a relationship, but your philosophy around men, like your
Yeah.
narrative.
Yeah.
What is that like? Or do you feel like once a cheater, always a cheater? I
No,
mean,
and I love
seriously,
that because
because these are real conversations because I would love to know your thoughts, especially because this was habitual.
mhm. Yeah. No, I laugh
Yeah.
because I made a post that said, because the work that I do, my tagline is removing the shame of your decision to leave or stay. Because whether you leave or stay, both decisions will be hard. And I am here as your affair recovery coach to help you navigate that hard. So I've had clients who have chosen to stay. And what I do is help them determine if their partner is a good candidate to rebuild trust with. But then I have a lot of clients who have made the decision, the hard decision to leave. Both decisions are hard. And I'm laughing because I had made a post about, it's okay to stay with a cheater. You just need to know what to look for to see if he's a good partner. And I remember I was at a dinner and we were two women were in a heated argument because one was like, once a cheater, always a cheater. The other woman was like, no. And so I don't believe once a cheater, always a cheater. Like I've seen it in the clients that I work with. I've seen it in personal relationships that I like my friendships where their partner has cheated, but now they worked through it. Um, but it's so possible. So I'll say that philosophy there, it's possible. But there's 2 parts to this, that I think is important. So when I first started on the dating scene, I noticed I kept attracting my ex-husband,
Mm,
and it was pissing me off. I was like, "Oh my gosh." So then I had this philosophy of like, "Oh yeah, all men ain't no," Well, then my life coach was like, "Okay, no, that just means that there's some more work that you need to do because we are a mirror in our relationships. So there's something in you that's attracting this kindred spirit still." So she was like, "Okay, so we got to do some deeper work. We got to work on that." So then, I would work on that and then I'd go back out there and I wasn't necessarily attracting my ex-husband anymore, but then I noticed I started to attract emotionally unavailable men. So then I was like, okay, there's something that I need to work on with that. So I would say this now, I'm in a space to where when I'm dating, I have the ability to connect and attract um, amazing men, but that's because I am showing up as my authentic self. And it's there's something about you showing up authentically, which allows you to attract what you want in a relationship. But also, what I found in dating now, like, with me being who I am now, The way that I communicate and express, my desires, not overlooking red flags, having those hard conversations early on. It's easier for me to sift out those people who are not in alignment with me versus those ones who actually are. So I don't think that all men are cheaters. I believe that we all have things that we are working on, but,
Yeah.
when you show up authentically and there's something about being authentic that allows you to have hard conversations and have them early on so that you're not sitting in, uncomfortable situations or questioning, "Oh, okay, is this a good candidate for me?" So, for me, like, it's a beautiful thing. Like, I remember I was working with a client and she was like, "Every relationship that I have ends in infidelity." And she said, "So I
Mm.
started to think that something is wrong with me." And she said, "But my mama and my friends told me there's nothing wrong with me. All men cheat." And I was like, "That's not true." I said, "I know several men in marriages who don't cheat, you know?" And so I said, "There is something wrong with you, because we cannot put that label on on a group of people.
Hold on. Yeah, you can't.
You
That's
know what I'm saying?
generalization. Yeah.
A generalization, like, that's a large generalization to make over a group of people. There has
Yeah.
to be something wrong with you. So I always say that we have to look at ourselves to see what is it that we may need to work on that's making us attract this type of energy to us. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that, and I know, you the work that you do, right? Let's kinda talk about that a little bit. I know you said you work with people who have decided to stay. Now
Mhm.
or you've also worked with women who have decided to make the choice to leave. No decision
Okay.
is wrong. It's really a
Mhm.
personal preference, which I agree. Do you find that women who leave, do you find that it's normally after the first offense, or this is a constant recurring act that
Yeah.
do you find that in your experience? Because I find that many women don't leave on the first time.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, you'll find that it's like, yeah, it's way past the first time. You know, like I have a new client now. She's 60 years old and she found out he cheated 12 years ago, and she's just now getting the courage to make that decision to leave. But like most of my clients, yeah, it hasn't happened. It's happened more than once.
Yeah. Do you find that women decide to stay even if he doesn't stop?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of us too think that, okay, well, if I just love him through it, right?
Yeah.
You know? And here's the thing about the church, because when I was going through everything that I was going through, I left the church. So there's this number about 7. There's something about 7 that follows me because I got married in 2013. I left the church in 2013, and then I didn't go back to church until 2020. So I was out of the church for 7 years, but um one of the reasons that I left the church was because when I was telling people everything I was going through, they were like, "Well, what are you doing to be his peace? Just go home and pray about it and do this." And so a lot of us women have this belief that, okay, even though he's cheating on you right now, it's your fault and you can change it by being a better person to him. So a lot of them think that, okay, well, if I do, you know what I'm saying? Like if I love him harder, if I show him more attention, if I be his peace, I hate that word, in that context. But they really do believe that if they change and become better, that their husband will stop the infidelity.
And they
That's their
still
belief.
feel that way even if they decide to stay and he
Mhm.
continues to cheat, they still feel like, "I have the power
Mhm.
to make him be something that he's not even interested in becoming."
And that's the
Yeah.
thing about staying with men who are still cheating, is that
Mhm.
if they're still cheating, they're not gonna stop. And, 9 times out of 10, there's some type of manipulation going on there, right? I had a client where one time her and her ex-husband, they had gotten into an argument and he wasn't talking to her. Well, during this time that he chose not to talk to her, his grandmother died. and, he didn't even tell her. And I wanna say he might have, like, even went off and, did all the family stuff, and she had to find out from her in-laws, and she was so hurt because she wanted to be there for her, husband at the time. So guess what happened? Now that created a cycle of her not bringing up conflict anymore. So things that bothered her and things that hurt her, because she was afraid of what he might take away from her if they get into it, she stopped bringing it up. And so she was in this, emotional manipulation of like, okay, if I refrain from all of the bad, then, he'll be happy with me, he'll stay happy with me, and life will be blissful. But that didn't happen because he still ended up he actually left her for the other woman. Like, he told her, "Hey, I'm leaving you for the other woman." Right? I have another client who did the same thing where she would just always turn her head and not say anything when she saw him doing XYZ. But she thought, and she was like, "I was trying hard, Brianna. I was planning dates and I was planning date nights and being romantic and buying lingerie." It didn't stop them. And so they do believe that, if I try harder, I love harder, I stop doing the stuff that he doesn't like, he'll change, and he won't.
Mm.
I think that's why the
Now I know
best thing
oh, sorry.
is people, but particularly women, because that's what I work with. That's why the biggest thing you can do for, a struggling relationship is work on you. Because once you
Yeah.
work on you, you're going to get clear on, okay, is this toxic or is this something that is just a communication issue that or personality conflict that he and I can work out, or is this his character, right? And so the biggest thing, women, if you're listening to this, the biggest thing that you can do is stop trying to seek help so that you can change him, but seek help to change yourself, because then everything else is going to open up for you.
Mm. No, I mean, that's good because in the end, that's really all the that's really the power that you do have, and I'm glad you
Mhm.
stated that because I don't think it's as black and white to leave because I
Yeah.
know when we hear things, "Well, why would someone stay?" And I'm like, "Y'all, it's more deeper than what you think it is."
Mhm.
It takes a lot of courage to leave. I think it
Mhm.
also equally takes a lot of courage to stay.
Mhm.
Um, and I think when you've been manipulated in ways that you don't have the clarity, you might actually believe that you have the ability to change. I mean, it's so many different things we can go down from
Yeah.
even religious perspectives. Like some
Mhm.
people feel like, oh, my faith won't let me leave. And it's
Mhm.
so many things that we can really unpack with that. But I'm glad that you covered that portion of it. Now I know you work with women, but have you ever worked with men who've experienced being
I
cheated
haven't.
on? Have you ever had men come to you and say, I'm struggling with this?
Yeah, I've had lots of men come to me. I've been able to create a, pool of men coaches that do the same thing that, work with
Mhm.
men, particularly with infidelity, so I'm able to refer them to them. But yeah, I was actually shocked when I started doing this work, the amount of men who are reaching out to me telling me that they're going through the same thing.
Of them being cheated on by
Cheated
their
on.
spouse.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It happens a lot that more than what people wanna believe on both ends, actually.
Mhm. Mhm.
Wow. That's yeah. Well, and that's good. I'm glad that they are because I don't think men get I think women get try to work it out. And I wonder if men really want to leave or do they feel pressured to leave because of how they may be perceived if
Mhm.
they stay? It's so much with that, but I'm glad they at least have the courage to reach out and you direct them to male coaches who can help them navigate that. Um, so let's talk because I know we're pressing for time, but this is such a conversation. It's so many different ways we can talk about this.
Mhm.
Now, for the woman who's listening right now, I mean, what would you say to her who she could be struggling? She don't know what to do. What would
Mhm.
you like? What's something that you can say to her if she doesn't know what to do? Who's struggling to stay or leave?
Mhm. Um, what would I say to the woman who's struggling right now? I would say if you're confused, it's okay to be confused. And I think that we rush, right? Because we're in this information era where there's so much information out there, and everybody feels pressured to have to know what you gonna do. Make a decision, make a decision, make a decision. But when you're dealing with something that is as painful as infidelity, I always tell my clients it's okay to be in a processing season, right? It's okay to process exactly how you're feeling in this moment and what you're going through, honoring that. Because I think that so many times we get in this fast pace of like, okay, but I have to make a decision now. I have to make a decision now. And what I would say to you is that if you have the ability to be able to be in this processing season without your partner. So if there's a place that you can go, if you have children, if there's a place that you and your babies can go, but if there's a place that you can kind of go to separate yourself from your partner and allow yourself to process every single emotion, Tanya, that you talked about when we opened up, the shame, the anger, the betrayal, the abandonment. Like, I think a lot of the times too, because we're so hurt, we mask it with, "You know what? I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good." And you're not really good, and it's okay to not be really good. So I would say to that woman right now who just doesn't know what she wants to do, whether she wants to leave, whether she wants to stay, don't beat yourself up for not knowing. Take
Yeah.
some time to actually process what it is that you're feeling. The next thing to that I would say is really think about what the track record has been of your partner. Um, if they have been incrementally getting better and you see that they've been getting better, look at things like that. Or if they've been getting worse and you've continued to be mistreated and emotionally abused. Um, when you talk about your feelings and concerns, are they holding themselves accountable? And I think that that's one of the biggest pieces to this situation is, does your partner hold themselves accountable? And are they empathetic to how you are feeling and giving you what you need to be able to heal within this time? Um, and so I would just say that, like, don't beat yourself up for not knowing. It's okay to be in a processing season right now because you're trying to figure it out. And when people come to you and they're like, "Girl, what you gonna do?" Guess what? It's okay for you to say, "Oh, I don't know. I'm processing everything right now." Somebody come to you and say, "Girl, you better than me because if a man cheat on me, I would leave." Tell them, "Hey, thank you for that, but right now I'm just kind of processing everything. I don't know if I'm going to leave or I'm going to stay, but right now I'm sitting with myself and processing what it is that's best for me." Don't allow people to feed in to the decision that you are going to make. Put them in their place, put those boundaries up, and be okay with processing just for right now.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta be careful who you confide in,
Mhm,
especially in a very sensitive time like this. Someone
mhm,
who's very non-judgmental,
mhm,
wants to see you make the best decision, but just knows when to have that conversation or not. You
mhm,
understand? And so I think that's really important, and I love that response, just having certain responses in place because there are a lot of opinions out here, a lot of information out here that creates actually more can create more confusion for you.
mhm,
And I think it's also safe to say, go to Brianna. You know what I'm saying? Like just go to Brianna for real because you know you've been there, you've done that. You're not there to judge. You have the experience. You've been through it. And
mhm.
you've also successfully navigated that. So having that safe space is very important.
And I would
What about
say too,
oh, I'm
like,
sorry.
when you're in that processing season, because what we don't realize, is that a lot of times we ask the wrong questions, right? Especially when we find out that our partner has cheated. We ask stuff like, "Well, how many times did the affair happen? What did the other person look like? Was she better in bed than me?" And what you don't realize is that those type of questions are only further damaging your security about yourself. And
Yeah,
like, we think that those questions are helpful, but in
yeah,
the end, they're only just hurting you more. And so, I have an ebook and it's only $7. and it's called Essential Questions to Ask Your Partner After They've Cheated on You. And so, like, 2 of the questions, I'll just read off 2 of the questions to you. Asking them, what were the factors or circumstances that led you to engage in this affair? What needs or desires did the affair fulfill that you felt were missing in our relationship? And so I have about 21 of those questions, and I don't encourage you to ask your partner all of them, but look through those questions and see, like, what would be a good 2 or 3 questions for me to engage in dialogue with my partner. Because what happens is that we don't actually understand from the lens of the betrayer why it is that they did what they did. And when you ask really essential questions, those questions are going to give you information that will further help you make your decision. Because based off of their response, you can tell, like, if this is a character flaw and there's nothing that you can do to help restore that in your marriage, or if this was, based off of their response, this is something that you can actually work through together and heal through. And so that's another thing, is that we're asking the wrong questions,
Yeah.
which is causing more confusion and not getting us to that clarity that we need to. So I would even encourage your listeners to go check that free ebook out, because it'll really give you a lot of direction. I had one client that I walked through with that, and her partner are flourishing in their relationship now.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that about asking those questions because the more questions you ask, the more you feel like that person's a threat to you. You
Mhm.
think that that's gonna give you more relief, but it's not.
Mhm.
Um, just asking all those questions, and I know before we close out, Brianna, um, what would you say to a woman who has left? Because I know people who I know I have people who listen who hasn't left, but I know the majority of my listeners are those who are already out of the
Mhm.
relationship, out of the marriage,
Mhm.
but they're having difficulty detaching. Like you said earlier, we're
Mhm.
physically out of something, but we're not emotionally and mentally detached from it, right? And
Mhm.
so, what if that what would you say to that person who's having difficulty detaching from the betrayal, detaching from the trauma, the shame, and fearing to trust again? I think it's the residue of things, it's the aftermath of this that many people have difficulty detaching from. And what if someone's saying, "I'm hearing you. I love where you are. I wanna be where you are, but I'm struggling."
Mhm. So first I wanna say this, there's another man out there that wants you. There's another man that, desires to love you the way that you deserve and the way that you desire to be loved, and that everything that your toxic partner told you about, you're older now, you got kids, ain't no other man gonna want you, and especially if you're a Black woman, you low on the totem pole in the dating space right now, right? I want you to remove all of that, because that's been one of the biggest things that women who have come to me have had, is that they're like, "Well, when it's time for me to date, nobody's gonna want me. Nobody's gonna want me." And now I can tell you that as they are healing themselves, they are loving this new era that they're in. And I'm telling you, there's something attractive about healing. And men are just gonna approach you because you are a healed human being and you're giving off this light and this vibrancy. But what I would also say is that learn to trust yourself. And so start to rebuild that trust within yourself. So make small promises with yourself and then honor those promises with yourself, right? And guess what? If one day you break that promise to yourself, show yourself compassion. Oh, dang, you know what? Dang, I didn't do that today. But you know what? Instead of it taking me 6 months or 3 months to realize this and call it out, it only took me 2 days. Wow, girl, I'm so proud of you for that. Okay, so we're gonna do better tomorrow. Because I think that we have this fake belief that healing is linear and that as we heal, we don't have any setbacks. And so give yourself some grace as you are on this healing journey and look at how far you've come. Like I said, we have to remind ourselves, hey, in the past, it took me 6 months to get out of this sadness and to get out of this anger. And now It's only taking me 3 months. Oh my gosh, girl, you are really doing the thing.
Yeah.
Be present. Stop because what's holding us back is that we're focused on the past and hyper focused on the future. And we don't know how to give ourselves grace and be present for where we are now. So, what I would say to that is that just do things to learn how to trust yourself. Another thing is this: if you didn't get the closure that you felt that you deserve, that's still giving him power. So to
Yeah.
take your power back, you have to define what closure looks like for you and how you can move on without the closure, right? Because
Yeah.
guess what? Him not giving you anything or him not telling you what you wanted to hear, that's really all the closure that you need because he's showing you, right? He's already showed you that. I think so many times we get caught up in, oh, I haven't gotten the closure, so I can't move on. Yes, you can because you define what closure looks like for you, right? And how you can
Yeah.
choose to move on. And I would just say also, it sounds small in the scheme of things, but just being proud of yourself and really paying attention. And I really want you to look at yourself in the mirror. I realized that I was so insecure that even though I was, you know, wearing cute outfits and doing all the things, I never really took the time to look at myself in the mirror. And
Yeah.
I always tell people this, and this will be the last thing. We allow people to treat us one step lower than we treat ourselves. So if you're talking bad to yourself every single day, if you are not proud of yourself every single day, if you are talking down on yourself, if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't keep your word to yourself, if you don't honor yourself, if you don't value yourself, right? If you don't see all of these great things about yourself, no one else is going to do it because you're
Mm.
going to allow that person to treat you one step lower than how you treat yourself. So really think about how you want to show up in this world and then start to do it, but do it small because it's going to build up. And so give yourself grace too as you're going through this healing journey.
Mm. I love that. I love that, honey. Brianna done gave all of the I love it. I do. I do because, recognizing those signs, I think is important because when we keep saying it's a process and it's a journey,
Mhm.
we have to stop and say, "Okay, I used to be angry every day. I woke up in this level of rage, but I
Mhm.
find that that's slowly decreasing."
Yeah.
Or I'm finding that I'm smiling more. I'm not reacting
Mhm.
like I used to. Like, these are the different signs that get to, really living a thriving life after
Yeah.
infidelity. And yeah, yeah, I
Exactly, like, I
absolutely
used
love
to cry
that.
myself to sleep 7 days a night, now it's only 5, and, like,
Yeah.
honoring that because we've been in relationships for umpteenth years, so you're not going to heal, and that's the thing, like, just because you have physically left doesn't mean or legally left doesn't mean that you physically left, it doesn't mean you emotionally left. So
Yeah.
now we have to start to heal our emotions that are connected to this partner that we thought we were gonna live a lifetime with. And so it's being okay with, still going through that journey and like you said, honoring yourself as you're healing through that.
Mm. Would you get married again?
I would. And that's a
Really?
big thing because, when you ask me that, like, coming out of it, I used to always say, I would just live with somebody and we can act married. And there was a point where I didn't even believe in love again. And again, I honor myself and I'm like, girl, you've come a long way because there's been times where you didn't even believe in love. And look at you now dating and
Yeah.
saying that you do want to get married again. Because love is a beautiful thing. And we can't let one person, you know, dictate how we see a large group of people or dictate how we choose to live our lives and cut off the things that we know that we desire because guess what, if you're doing that you're still giving them some form of power. And
Yeah.
so you have to take all your power back and say, hey, this is the life that I desire and it's possible and honor that. And don't let fear lead you because of this betrayal.
No, I love that. I mean, just knowing that, making that decision that I would get married again because of my own healing, not to mention that you're gonna be stepping in with a newer version of Brianna, you can appreciate the previous version of yourself. I think everybody should appreciate every version. I think we should appreciate
Mhm.
ourselves, but knowing that you're in a different place, you've grown, you've evolved, you know how to trust yourself, meaning that I speak up on the things that I need to address. No
Yeah.
longer am I going to be in denial about what's there, and I think that's the power that you hold, and that's what allows you to really live a intentional and thriving life. And so, Brianna, I appreciate you coming and sharing not only your story, but just also helping women know how to recover intelligently. Because I do think there's an unintelligent way to recover,
It is.
and I do, and I don't say that to be funny. I just
Yeah.
because heartbreak is real,
Yeah.
and it can harden like stuff like this can harden your heart. And it can
Mhm.
cause you to move in ways that you probably wouldn't have done before, and so, just doing it in an intelligent way helps us be strategic about not only the present, but our future, and so, any final where can people find you?
Okay. Yeah, I do wanna say that every once in a while, I do let my clients be petty because I also understand, like, there's this human side to us, right?
Oh,
And so
100%.
sometimes my clients will be like, "I ain't gonna lie, Brianna, I did XYZ, blah, blah, blah," and I'm like, "Cool." Yeah, because again, you have to when we're talking about that, like, be proud of yourself, right?
Yes.
Because in the past, you probably woulda did that times 10, but,
Oh, 100 oh, yeah.
instead, you only did this one little petty thing. I'm proud of you,
Oh, yeah,
I'm gonna
pettiness has levels. Listen, okay,
right,
listen. It does. It really does, y'all. I'm with you because I have clients that's hey, it's a process.
it's
Nobody
a
gets this thing
process.
called right. I'm telling you, it is,
Yeah.
and I'm glad that you mentioned that. And I don't want people to think like, oh, this is linear. We don't make no mistakes. But when you find that
Uh-huh.
you waking up 10 years later and your
Uh-huh.
life is still where it was 10 years ago,
Exactly.
we gotta
Yeah.
yeah we gotta make some changes here. And so I'm glad that you you said that. So
Important because sometimes when we're hurt and when women scorn, they be like, "Oh, nah, I'm finna do that." And every once in a while, I like, one time one of my calls like, "I'm thinking about sending this text, blah, blah, blah." I was like, "Okay, that it." And she's like, "Are you serious?" Yeah. So much other good things, and that's what I love about what they tell me, the feedback that I get from my clients is like, "You still have this realness," like, and I'm like, "Sis, I've been there. I understand. I've been to the house. I've jumped the patio and the balcony and broken into the house. Like, I've done all the things, and it's not the best." And I don't tell them to do all of that, of course, but what I'm saying is, like, emotionally, I've been there, and so I understand that
oh yeah.
we're not gonna do I don't expect you to be Mother Teresa, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
But,
of
yeah.
course not. Listen, you
And
know what?
I love a good pettiness every once in a while that my clients do, like, I love it, it's enjoying to me.
Listen, I was watching I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and I said, "You know what? When I first watched Waiting to Exhale, I was like 15 years old.
Girl,
I was so
yes.
young. You 15, you don't get it, but now, baby, 43, you get it. You
Listen.
like, baby, I see why Angela Bassett, like, listen, let's just cut the charades and be honest. Like, that was a moment
Right.
that I
Right.
feel like hits a little different when
Uh-huh.
you've grown and experienced and been through different places of life.
Yeah.
I'm like, baby, that movie, it hit a little different now. Like,
Yeah,
you
but
you you really get it. I ain't get it at
yeah.
15. I mean, you get it, but it's like you 15. You still, but baby, being 43, you like, yeah, I can
Mhm.
see how she, like,
Lost
had
it.
that and I ain't even yeah. And you know
Lost
what? I get it because that's how powerful emotions are, man. Emotions can be very powerful. And
it. I'm
so
gonna tell you a funny story, like, I know we
uh-huh.
gotta go, but I just enjoyed our talk, but so one time when me and my ex-husband, we were separated, and I knew something wasn't right, right? So it's 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the morning. I put on my all black and I go to his apartment. And luckily he stayed on the first floor and his car was not there. So I was like, okay, bet. Baby, I jumped his patio because I remember him telling me there was something wrong with his patio door and it wasn't locking. That's another thing, women are we remember everything, like, we store everything. So, I jumped
I'm
his
telling you, we
patio,
really do.
girl. I jumped his patio, and he wasn't in his house, and I was like, "Okay." And so, I proceeded to go in his bed and lay down until he got home, and my best friend was like, "I knew you had lost it when you told me that you went to sleep in a person's house that you broke into, even if it was your husband."
I'm telling you,
And
man. It's
my other friend was like, "Take all his stuff right now and throw it in the tub and then get bleach and bleach all his stuff." And that's the thing, like, I've never had that type of spirit. So when you ask me, like, have I ever, like, wanted to revenge, like, I've had opportunities and I've had friends who have told me to do XYZ, but I've never went that far. But yeah, like, we be emotional, honey, in the moment.
Yeah, and I know people say I would never do it, but I'm telling you, you don't in that moment, it's like
Yeah.
you really don't know. And that's why it's important to have coaches like
Mhm.
Brianna or even myself to kind of we don't want you to go too far. Cause
Exactly.
you know what I'm saying? Like we ain't
Yeah.
listen, y'all, if y'all listen, I don't want y'all to think we telling y'all to do no.
Right.
We're just
Don't
letting you
break in
know
nobody's
that
house. That's
yeah,
dangerous, extremely
right. We're
dangerous.
just
Don't do that,
saying that
folks.
there are oh yeah, because baby, back in 2010 this version of Tanya was not here, okay? Let's just say LaTanya was, yeah, we just gonna leave it at that, okay? Because 'Cause I'm telling you, it's real. And
Uh,
so I'm glad that you stated that because we want you to know that there is a real side to this, and your
mhm,
emotions are real. And when you
mhm,
feel that level of rage, where you feel like, "I really wanna pull the Angela Bassett waiting to
mhm.
exhale moment," those are real feelings to have.
Yeah.
And so I'm
Mhm.
glad that you stated that because it also creates a safe space because
Yeah.
you don't wanna feel like I'm tripping or I wouldn't do all this for a man. It's not about doing it all for a man. It's the betrayal. It's the
Mhm,
trauma. It's the hurt.
mhm, mhm.
It's that part of it all that drives these types of emotions. And so I'm glad that you said that. And so before we close out, where can people find you out here in these social media streets? Where can we find Brianna out here?
Yes, I am, life after infidelity on all platforms, so Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And then you can also go to my website at lifeafterinfidelity.net. And then, my devotional, Healing the Heart from Infidelity, is actually out. You can get it off of my website or on Amazon as well.
And so I will put everything down in the show notes for everybody to follow her on Instagram, her website, her book, as well as her podcast. Any final remarks before we close out?
No, I just wanna say thank you so much. Thank you for the work that you are doing. This is hard work, but I'm so grateful that there are people like us who are here just helping people become better and not bitter, which is a beautiful thing. And, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely. And I thank you too for doing the work you do. Infidelity is a very difficult situation to navigate. And so just having people in place to be a safe space for those in a difficult time, I really appreciate you doing the work that you do. Thank you so much, Brianna, and I appreciate you being
Sure.
here.
Thank
All right.
you.
Take care. All right.
Bye.